Imagine what would happen if everything connected to the internet suddenly stopped working. Hospitals wouldn't be able to access their records, tests would take far longer to process, and thousands of people would die because they can't get help quickly enough. All the ATMs in the world would suddenly go offline, and if people want to withdraw money, they would have to stand in line at the bank, and banks would quickly run out of cash on hand.
What do you mean the bank is out of money?
CCTV and security cameras managed wirelessly would go down, leading to even more crime. Automated toll gates wouldn't work anymore, causing massive traffic jams. Google, Amazon, Facebook, all these companies would shut down, leaving hundreds of thousands of people without jobs. Air travel would be disrupted, as airlines figure out how to go back to old flight plan systems. Satellites and GPS would be useless. Nuclear reactors would go unmonitored, the stock market would crash, and the world would descend into absolute chaos. Thankfully, a global internet outage isn't possible, right? It could never happen in a developed country. America has to have loads of failsafes in place to stop the internet from going down, right? Well, here's the thing. We really don't. No one does.
A series of cyber attacks that have just been launched in Ukraine.
ATMs shut down in Kiev.
NotPetya provided a similar ransom message, but it was never intended to provide a fix. Its goal was purely destructive.
June 17, 2017. It's a quiet Tuesday afternoon in Ukraine. Seemingly out of nowhere, something goes wrong with the internet. Starting in Kiev, almost every electronic device connected to the internet goes down, and this quickly spreads throughout the rest of the country.
There's obviously one prime suspect that's on people's minds.
The US government tonight is urgently warning that someone, they're not saying who, but presumably Russia.
In Ukraine, cyber attacks from Russia aren't anything new, but no one has ever seen something at this scale before. Chernobyl's nuclear plant went offline. ATMs stopped working. No one could pay for gas. Packages and mail got lost, with lots of them never being found again. Wherever something was connected to the internet, a telltale ransomware message was displayed. The price to get access to your computer or phone back? $300 in Bitcoin. But here's the thing, even if you paid, you never got your data back. This wasn't just an ordinary ransomware attack. This was a political move by Russia. They weren't going for maximum destruction. They weren't trying to make money from Ukraine. Oh no, the point of this cyber attack from Russia was to convey one thing. We're inside your electric grid, and we can bring down your entire country at any moment.
The official said a wave of so-called denial of services attacks struck around 4 p.m. Ukraine time, and among the reported victims are banks and government websites.
80% of Ukraine's computers were wiped clean in the attack, but it didn't stop there. Any company that did business in Ukraine, that employed Ukrainians remotely, or even touched Ukraine with a 6-foot pole was under attack too. Everything from FedEx to Cadbury to Pfizer was affected by what eventually became known as the NotPetya malware. In less than 24 hours, the Russian hackers who perpetrated the attack inflicted over $10 billion in damages. And this was in a country that wasn't completely reliant on the internet. In Ukraine, baby monitors, insulin pumps, stove, cars, pacemakers weren't web-enabled yet, meaning that they could still work without being connected to the internet. And that was their saving grace. Even with the internet down, people could still survive. But what would happen in a country where every device relies on the internet? Where electric cars, smart homes are just a part of everyday life? A country like America.
And one of the things that makes this such a challenging problem is all you need is one weak link.
An attack of this magnitude would cause death, destruction, and anarchy on a scale never seen before, all without firing a single bullet or dropping a single bomb. It would spark the next great generation of warfare. Warfare that is extremely different from what we've grown accustomed to. But obviously, America is prepared for something like this, right? I mean, we're talking about Ukraine versus America, the country with the most military spending ever. Well, not really, because here's the thing. For decades, America has only been focusing on the offensive side of cyber warfare. Like China and Russia, the US has been developing teams of hackers with some of the best skills in the world, but none of them are focusing on defending our internet systems, which has pretty much left the world right back to where it was during the Cold War, where every superpower has weapons of mass destruction, and the only reason they don't use them on each other is because they know the other side will retaliate. Except these WMDs don't rely on nuclear fission or the like, but ones and zeros. My name is Jake Tran. I make documentaries on money, power, war, and crime with my team, and this is how the world will end. Public is a social investing app trusted by millions, where you can easily invest in stocks, ETFs, and crypto with any amount of money. Public is a serious game changer because you can follow other investors right in the app to see what they invest in. Just think about how much of an advantage you could have by getting to peer into the brains of these successful people by seeing exactly what they're investing in. And I'm also on Public. You can follow me at Jake Tran. Public has thousands of stocks and ETFs to choose from, and over 30 different cryptos like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Doge. You can buy little slices of a stock, ETF, or crypto instead of a full share, so it is accessible no matter what your investment budget is. The Public app is also free, and there are no commissions on standard stock trades. And unlike other investment apps out there, Public puts its investors first. They never sell your trades to market makers, and instead your trades are routed directly to the exchanges. Plus, Public is backed by big-name investors like Will Smith, the Chainsmokers, and Tony Hawk. And if you go to public.com/JakeTran and create an account, you'll get a free stock worth anywhere from $3 to $1,000. That's public.com/JakeTran to get a free stock with the link below. Thanks to Public for sponsoring this video.
Is an attack that happened 2 months ago when a very sophisticated virus infected computers in the Saudi Arabian state oil company Aramco.
August 15th, 2012. The day before a major Saudi Arabian religious holiday, 11:08 a.m., someone accesses Saudi's state-owned oil company's computers and carries out one of the most destructive acts of computer sabotage they have ever experienced. Aramco's entire computer network is infected with a virus that erases at least 75% of its data, emails, documents, files, spreadsheets, everything, and replaces all of it with a picture of a burning American flag. Aramco supplies around 10% of all the world's oil supply, and an attack like that could have ripple effects all across the world. But how did someone access a computer network as secure as one of the world's most important oil companies? By using the most powerful weapon in any hacker's cyber arsenal, a 0-day. 0 days are basically like the weapons of the cyber arms race. When you're coding a piece of software, you're bound to leave a trail of tiny little mistakes. Miss a comma, or type a capital O instead of 0, and the vulnerability that creates might be enough for a hacker to exploit your software. These are 0 days. They're bugs, bits of code, any sort of vulnerability that lets you exploit a computer network, software, program, pretty much anything that's on a computer or connected to the internet. They're little security holes in software that no one knows about yet. Think about them like a hole or a tunnel in a border wall that Border Patrol doesn't know about yet. But the minute that exploit is taken advantage of, the Border Patrol will patch up that hole or tunnel, and then you can't use that 0-day anymore. Almost every software or computer program in the world has at least one 0-day that no one knows about. So if you're an intelligence agency, government, or dictator, your goal is to find these 0 days before anyone else does and save them for a rainy day. When the time comes to exploit a 0-day, you need to make sure you inflict as much damage as possible, gather as much intel as possible before the exploit is found and patched up. We're talking hacking into databases, shutting down electricity grids, gaining control of nuclear reactors. The ideas are endless. The only problem was, 0 days aren't exactly easy to find. You need a lot of coding expertise and a lot of man-hours. So even though 0 days were incredibly valuable and dangerous, in the beginning, they kind of stayed under the radar, right until iDefense was created, the first company in the world to buy and sell 0 days. And it marked the beginning of a new arms race. But instead of a nuclear arms race, it was a cyber one.
The notorious hacking group Anonymous has declared war on Russia.
We've seen the attacks on Wall Street over the last 6 months grow significantly.
Their call to fight in the cyberspace has resulted in a lot of websites not being available, some websites going down.
We cannot look back years from now and wonder why we did nothing in the face of real threats to our security and our economy.
It was 2003, and iDefense was a failing tech company that desperately needed to find its niche. After all, this was right after the dot-com bubble burst. Life wasn't exactly easy for tech and internet companies trying to make a name for themselves. So, iDefense decided to tap into the one industry that was booming, the 0-day black market. You see, dictatorships and criminal organizations didn't have the manpower or the skills to find and exploit 0 days themselves. So they turned to black hat hackers, The hackers that did illegal stuff, like creating ransomware viruses and DDoS attacks that targeted everyone from CNN to Amazon. Back then, no one had really realized the true potential of 0 days, and they were being sold for dirt cheap. So iDefense saw an opportunity: buy 0 days for popular company software from these black hat hackers, and then sell it back to these software companies so they can fix the vulnerabilities. iDefense became an instant hit. They would buy 0 days for $75 each from hackers all over the world. Then they'd get their team to make sure the 0 day was completely legit and set up a presentation on how it could be used by criminals. If a company subscribed to their services, this 0 day and all the extra info would be handed over to that company so they could fix it. iDefense's business plan was so successful that in just a year's time, the original subscription fee of $18,000 had more than doubled. And for particularly vulnerable companies, a subscription could cost nearly $500,000 a year. That's how much these 0 days were worth to companies who could lose millions or billions of dollars from one vulnerability. But then, just like every super popular niche market, other organizations started getting in on the game. iDefense was no longer alone, and the race to find 0 days was on for both white hat and black hat reasons. Government agencies and tech companies had gotten smart about 0 days. Now they saw the danger and potential, so just like every other business, they wanted to bypass the middleman. So companies like Microsoft started going to hackers directly, offering the exact same deal iDefense did. Realizing how much their 0 days were really worth, hackers started hoarding all the bugs and vulnerabilities they could, hoping for a massive payday from the right person. And all the government agencies? Well, the NSA and CIA decided to get in on the game themselves too. They set up massive cyber departments with the sole focus of collecting 0 days for everything from Apple to banks to online messaging platforms. They said it was all in the name of national security, but the truth was, these agencies weren't really helping companies fix their security systems. Instead, they were using them to spy on the public. And it wasn't just America. Security agencies all over the world were following the US's example, hoarding and building up a cyber weapons arsenal ready to be used at the tap of a button. They had just overlooked one small but essential detail: the globalization of tech industries.
And that 3 decades ago, there really wasn't this moral hazard baked in, because if we found a hole in Huawei software, well, for the most part, Americans weren't using Huawei, but China was, and North Korea was, and Iran, and Sudan, and Syria. So we had a legitimate case to make that we should break into that software and use it as a beachhead to spy on some of our adversaries. But these days, 3 decades later, and Huawei is obviously a glaring exception, and we're lobbying hard to get our allies not to use Huawei's hardware and software and 5G. But, with few exceptions, we're all using the same technology now.
The government did its best 0 day work just as the world experienced another tech boom. For years, the CIA and NSA have been finding holes in foreign tech companies like Huawei and Samsung and using them to spy on people they thought were a threat to America. But by the 2010s, these companies weren't just selling to their own people anymore. They were selling their tech on a global scale. So now, it wasn't just the Chinese or North Koreans America could spy on, it was any American using a Huawei or Samsung phone. It was anyone on Earth using a piece of technology the US intel agencies had found 0 days for. And the rest of the world? Well, they were just as happy to use their own 0 days to spy on the Americans who were using their tech. And with all of this 0 day hoarding, the world faced a new problem: extremely vulnerable software that no one wanted to fix. America wasn't about to tell Apple about a 0 day they found. That would mean Apple fixes the issue and the NSA or CIA's access gets cut. So they kept their findings a secret. Big mistake. You see, with so many vulnerabilities in US companies and no one to identify or fix them, it left America open for attack. And that attack came in August 2016.
group calling themselves the Shadow Brokers claim that they've hacked the NSA, according to foreignpolicy.com.
A mysterious group of hackers known only as the Shadow Brokers announced their hack on Twitter. Their target? The NSA. In the leaks that followed, dozens of the NSA's most secret and advanced cyber weapons were sold to the highest bidder. It was an embarrassment and national security catastrophe. The NSA was supposed to be the guys protecting America against hackers in 0 days, and yet they were pretty much the first ones to fall victim to it. Even worse, most of the hacking tools the Shadow Brokers had stolen had actually been used for 14 months before their Twitter announcement, and no one at the NSA had realized anything was wrong. That was the power of 0 days.
The NSA has not commented on this because they're, again, like any government agency, they're not going to confirm or deny.
And the worst part? America, the country that's supposed to be at the forefront of fighting against these hacks, had been caught completely off guard. And as far as anyone can see, even after the leak, the NSA and all the other US agencies are still nowhere near securing their cyber weapons arsenals.
Of Russian assaults against Ukraine, and yes, we woke
as
up
I said, the
find there's a
magnitude of
number of
Russia's cyber
government
threat
websites. I'm fascinated by
the cost of cyber attacks is now far exceeds the cost of terrorism. Even some of the most conservative estimates far exceed the cost of terrorism, but we haven't really opened our eyes. We are all in each other's grids at this point. Okay, I've reported that. You know, we are in Russia's grid, they are in ours. We are doing it as sort of a show of mutually assured destruction, but we are all awaiting that geopolitical trigger for anyone to actually shut off the lights. And I don't think anyone actually wants to do it because we would just turn around and do it right back.
This is our reality. There are hackers all over the world collecting 0 days on everything from Disney Plus to the Department of Defense. The world's tech has become so globalized that America's agencies are in everyone else's networks, which means Russia and China are also in America's networks too. Basically, the whole world is right back in the days of nuclear acceleration, when everyone was rushing to create the biggest, baddest nuclear weapons to try to scare other countries from attacking them. No one is focusing on defense or de-escalation. Everyone is just trying to outdevelop the other side so that if one country gets the guts to attack, all of the others will be ready to retaliate immediately. And if everything carries on the way it is now, we may end up in cyber Armageddon. Widespread blackouts, nuclear reactors overtaken, pipelines shut down. Entire economies will be brought to a standstill, all from the push of a button, and panic will ensue. When the cyber arms race first started, America was in the middle of another fight, the war on terror. See, on the night Special Forces assassinated America's most feared enemy, Osama bin Laden, in his compound, they discovered something drastic: a treasure trove of computers, hard drives, notebooks, and printed files lying around on every floor. These files could contain priceless intelligence, and if they left it for the Pakistani military, Osama's compound was in Pakistan, they may never get their hands on it again. So they radioed back to their commanders, asking for as much time as they could spare. They gave them an extra 10 minutes. Ultimately, the SEALs were able to stretch it to 18 minutes. And in that 18 minutes came a treasure trove of 500,000 digital and physical files. This intel collection would become known as the Bin Laden Papers. And for years, most of those files were kept classified. But in 2017, the CIA finally declassified over 470,000 of those files for the world to see. And what they contained was a complete revelation. These files showed a whole new side of Osama bin Laden that the world had never seen before. But here's the thing. A video that goes this deep into bin Laden's life, his attacks, and his plans for the world is basically guaranteed to get demonetized. So that's why we just released a brand new private documentary going over the Bin Laden Papers in all its infamy. And channel members have been loving the documentary. All you have to do to get access to this documentary right now, and all the other documentary-length videos that are too controversial, too dark, too risky to post publicly, is to click the join button below. Once you sign up, you'll get exclusive access to the Bin Laden Papers, plus others: Jeffrey Epstein, Monsanto, the company that owns the world's food supply, MK Ultra, and many more in the future. These are the things they should be teaching you in university about how the world works. But unlike university, you get all of this for just $5 a month. And what's even better is that if you join and you don't think it's worth it, email me and I'll personally refund you the money. Pause the video and click that join button below right now.
Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you're new here, my name is Jake and we make documentaries just like this one every single week on money, power, and crime, multiple times a week for free. So if you enjoyed this one, click that subscribe button below. Remember, you can always dislike and unsubscribe whenever you want, so you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. If you want longer documentaries that are too controversial to post publicly, click that join button below. We just put out a documentary on the Bin Laden papers, basically the secret life of Bin Laden that was revealed by a bunch of declassified documents that was seized during the raid that killed Bin Laden. Super fascinating video that will definitely get demonetized because it talks about Bin Laden and 9/11, all the things YouTube doesn't like, and you can watch it right now by clicking that join button below. There's a refund policy too, so if you join and you don't think it's worth it, just email me and I'll personally refund you the money, no problem. That's gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching. Stay dangerous out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.